All right, everybody, we're going to do this in as little time as possible. Go through all of the fallout from Mr. Buffalo Yogurt's disastrous showing in Super Tuesday's congressional primary in California, the 25th District of California. He came in fourth. You've probably seen a lot of the figures. And we're going to analyze a little bit of that and go through some of the other political and perhaps a little economic news as well. I'm going to speak a little bit about Venezuela, just an update. So, Young Turks founder who got a pile of cash from Google loses the primary, goes on the rant. Cenk Uygur, founder of the progressive YouTube channel The Young Turks, unleashed an angry meltdown on air during his Super Tuesday election night coverage. Now, that was 5 days ago. Sorry I haven't been in the loop with you guys, but obviously I'm not doing this even close to full time anymore. As a longtime Bernie bro, Uygur appeared flustered by Senator Bernie Sanders' poor performance on Tuesday and upset by former Vice President Joe Biden's 10-state sweep. Now, it's not really fair to call it a sweep because obviously Sanders did win other states like Colorado and California. And I think it is a bit, it's still kind of impressive that Sanders is able to win some of those states. But the fact is that I think it's very possible, very, very possible that Sanders could end up with less delegates in 2020 than he did in 2016, simply because of the fragmentation of the progressive base early on due to Elizabeth Warren, and also because of the lack of enthusiasm this cycle, despite what many thought was going to be a much more, what do you call it, formidable machine behind him in terms of activists and volunteers. And I still think, by the way, if you're a Bernie bro watching this, I still think that Bernie Sanders has the best organization and best group of volunteers out there. I just don't think that the message is necessarily permeating and percolating throughout the voting public in most of the states. And therefore, unfortunately for him, I'm not a supporter of his, but unfortunately for him, there's going to be almost no chance of him being a viable candidate, whether as a Democrat or as an independent, which of course he's not going to do because he's already committed to supporting Joe Biden if he wins the nomination, or anybody for that matter. So yeah, we're gonna go watch a couple of these videos. Here he is after the results start to pour in.
Since Biden is going to have a much stronger showing tonight than originally expected, going forward, we're going to have trench warfare. Fine, I'll do it, okay? I feel like I said this my whole life. Fine, I'll do it. We all have to go and collectively kick their goddamn asses. Yes, we will be forceful. We are going to be very, 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 very forceful. Look, are you kidding me? Joe Biden did not get arrested with Nelson Mandela. We need to be sustainable in the middle of this trench warfare. But we didn't start the war. They'll lie about it again. We didn't start the war. They started the war. For God's sake. So you want to go to war? We'll go to war.
So this is a person who thought that he would have a path to Congress. And obviously I know I'm saying obviously a lot, so I sound like that woman Akila, obviously, who's sued Sargon of Akkad and lost. But again, Cenk Uygur has apparently got some sort of mental interruption going on when he thinks that he could challenge the Democratic Party itself in a district that is very, very mixed in terms of its voting base and win as a progressive. That turned out to not be true when in this video, which he's not even talking about that race in this case, he is talking about how, we're going to war with the Democratic establishment. He's been saying that. He's said that over and over again since 2016. And what's happened? He's basically lost the war. There is no chance of the Democrats being overwhelmed by this progressive wave that started in 2018 anymore. I think that wave is actually receding. You could see in the next Congress, whether they're in the minority or in the majority, the Democrats will probably be a much more businesslike and, let's be honest, corrupt party. Not that the progressives are themselves clean, but you're seeing failures on all fronts. There was, I think her name was Jessica Cisneros. So her primary also, she went and she mounted a very, very strong challenge to Henry Cuellar of Texas, and he ended up winning. Henry Cuellar, 52 to 48%. Not exactly a blowout, but that was the big hope of the Justice Democrats, and they came up empty, unfortunately for them. And that's the trend I think that's going to follow around the country. You could see some of these big heartthrobs for the progressive cause simply start to fall apart, even ones that are already in Congress, like Ilhan Omar, like Rashida Tlaib, not necessarily because people disagree with their political stances, but simply because they don't have any accomplishments to their name, and the people in their districts might just be looking for someone who can get more hookups.
We thought look, a week ago, I would have told you, I did tell you, Super Tuesday, I think we got this. Remember, we were talking about Whisper of a Dream. I think it might be over on Super Tuesday. So I'm not saying this on behalf of TYT or anything like that. We thought it was almost over. Bernie was going to win. Now it's not over. Now we're in a tie. And now we got absolute dig-in warfare against the establishment. But we didn't start the war. They'll lie about it again. We didn't start the war. They started the war. They've been lying about Bernie Sanders. For God's sake, on Castro, I could give you 1,000 examples. Bernie Sanders said the same exact thing as Obama. Everyone on TV is lying like, oh my God, what an outrageous thing Bernie Sanders said. Obama said the same thing. No, shut up. Don't cover it. Don't cover it. Don't cover it. Obama said the same thing. Is Obama pro Fidel Castro? Same exact thing. God damn it, tell the truth. God damn it, tell the truth. If you're not going to do it, we're going to do it, okay? And so you want to go to war, we'll go to war. And that is what this is. We cannot let Biden win. Guys, not just on progressives versus establishment. This is so important. I need you to understand this. Biden is not going to beat Trump. Biden.
So let me stop before it gets further into the Biden thing. Technically, Cenk Uygur is correct because Obama did say a number of, I guess you could say, flattering things about Fidel Castro, and I would disagree that I would disagree with the substance of what Obama said, but the difference is very striking. When Obama started to cozy up with Cuba and tried to patch the differences, and in fact ended up ending the embargo for a while, or I believe he at least tried to end it, and was sorry, I got a spot on the screen, but he was already in his second term, and he didn't have much to risk in terms of that. When you're a lame duck president, you have the license to do many things that you want, and that's not saying that it was more meritorious than what Sanders said or less. Bernie Sanders is running for president, and he has to attract voters in states like Florida, as well as other parts of the country where there's major Cuban populations, and look, that's very important, mainly for Florida, where I believe the last poll said that he's trailing Biden. Biden is polling at 49% lead. That's Biden's lead in Florida. So Sanders could potentially, if this trend continues, he could not even post a viable result in Florida and end up getting no delegates there. That would be a tremendous disaster. It would effectively signal that he could never win in Florida, which I think by now we should probably conclude is already true. We don't even need the result from the Florida primary. And it would reverse significantly any attempts by progressives to make any inroads in that state, where in 2018 you might remember that Sanders supporter Andrew Gillum was the nominee for governor.
Is either near senile or actually senile. Watch any of the tapes. And Biden lies nonstop. He's going to get caught. The media is covering for him, but they're not going to be able to cover when the Republicans come for him. And when Trump comes for him, he's not going to beat Trump. The establishment candidate is less likely to beat Trump. Anyway, we just had 2016. The establishment candidate lost to a doofus like Trump. And now here we go, an establishment candidate that is far worse with his mental faculties under question. His record worse than Hillary Clinton's. He lies 1,000 times more than Hillary Clinton did, right? And you're going to run that guy against Trump, and we're going to lose to Trump again and maybe lose our democracy? Hell no. Hell no. No, Bernie Sanders is going to win this race. And I'm telling you right now, and it's not just, hey, let's go fight. It's also a prediction. Biden is not capable of winning this, and we're not doing any brokered convention where they give it to someone who didn't get less votes. Not going to happen. Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. I'm telling you right now. Yes.
So this is another instance where, in the heat of the moment, due to his passionate commitment, Cenk Uygur makes an awful prediction. Bernie Sanders is not going to be the nominee. I can tell you that. Whatever happens to Biden, Bernie Sanders is not going to get the nomination. They've torpedoed any chance of that. In the past few weeks, I get it that some of the states that he's lost, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, you could probably say, well, who cares if he can't win in South Carolina? The fact is that South Carolina is a heavily red state, and you're just polling a rump portion of the electorate over there who happen to be mostly black, and they therefore vote with the minority Democrats. So a lot of these southern states, which have already voted and are going to vote heavily for Biden, like Arkansas, like Alabama, Tennessee, people are trying to say, well, who cares anyway? The real states that matter are the ones that have major Democratic electorates. States like California, which Bernie Sanders won. States like Colorado, which was for a long time a purple state, seems to have become a blue state. But that's not the way things work. Every single state has its share of delegates. And when we start looking at some of the states that could be considered purple states, could be considered battleground states, states such as, I would say, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, possibly still Ohio, I think that you're going to also see an erosion of support for Bernie Sanders. The last poll I saw that was taken of Washington State, which is by no means a purple state, has Biden ahead, which I found shocking. And if Bernie Sanders loses Washington, if Bernie Sanders loses Oregon, I would say that it's a sign that first of all, his progressive base simply isn't as strong as people thought it was. They can get their own people to go out and vote. They can't really get converts throughout the rest of the electorate. Or, and this would be going to their point, the electoral contests are basically being channeled by party bosses. They're getting people to come out and vote for the people that they're telling the voters to vote for, or there's some sort of tampering with the process, which I wouldn't discount. No, look, anything's possible. It could be that the progressives are getting cheated. I'm not trying to say that it's not possible, and I'm leaving open that possibility. But one of those two things is going to happen. Either the progressives are going to get just buzzsawed by, the majority of voters going out and voting for Biden and holding their noses, apparently, because I don't think most of these people are enthusiastic Biden supporters. I think most of them are just resigned to the fact that he's the only choice that they have. Or you do have some sort of conniving by the DNC to cheat Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, in which case there's no recourse from that. Bernie Sanders is already committed to endorsing the eventual Democratic nominee. And while he complains once in a while about his treatment by the DNC, it's not really making any difference. Right? So now that Tulsi Gabbard has been disqualified for no real reason from the presidential debate, even though she won the delegate needed to get in. Bernie Sanders, to my knowledge, hasn't even come out and said anything about it. Reason Magazine, okay, understand that. Reason Magazine, the basically the pro open borders, libertarian, Koch brothers loving magazine, one that is certainly not progressive. Now they are anti-war, but they're certainly not progressive. They've said more about Tulsi Gabbard's disqualification than either TYT or Bernie Sanders. There's clearly a difference between them. And this is from Xochitl Hinojosa, and she says, we have 2 more debates. Of course, the threshold will go up. By the time we have the March debate, almost 2,000 delegates will be allocated. The threshold will reflect where we are in the race, as it always has. And you have John Stossel. Okay, John Stossel has done more to help Tulsi Gabbard remain relevant, and yet the DNC just
to be in the
strong arms her out of it.
One is
so, he's interviewing her. He's giving her as much attention as he can because he's an anti-war journalist. He's not a progressive, but he certainly, he's willing to work across the aisle, so to speak, with progressives in order to oppose military intervention abroad. And the DNC is putting all these obstacles in her way. And this is coming from people like myself. I don't think I would vote for Tulsi Gabbard anymore. If there's no point here in Ohio, she'd probably not even reach 2% over here. If that, she'd probably reach less than 2%. Like, I would say at this point, she might not even reach 0.5% in Ohio. So I think I might just go out and fill out a Republican primary ballot and be done with it, because there could be some GOP people who are up for nomination this year, and it would be a waste of time to vote for some of these Democratic nominees who probably wouldn't be of any interest to me. So, yeah, this is some more stuff regarding his own primary, Cenk Uygur's primary, from Dame Pesos, who I think this is Dame Pesos is a channel that they compile. I don't know if it's one person or several people. They compile all of the most embarrassing clips from TYT and just run reels of their cringy losses. So here we go.
Okay, John, he has an important update. Go.
Yeah, I do. Okay, it's one of the important races. It's Cenk's race, so I wanted to give you an update on the data. That's why I was like, important update.
Okay, tell us.
So we have 12.8%, and right now, at least with that vote, it is not looking great for Cenk. Mike Garcia, the Republican, currently has 33.9% of the vote. Christy Smith, Democrat, is in second. You have Steve Knight, Republican, in third, and Cenk right now in fourth there. You never know, but obviously this is not where he would want to be at 12%.
You sound just so excited.
I'm not saying it's a good update, but I'm saying we're kind of here for a few
to have
things.
an update, and then it's this? What
Thanks, John.
There's like 3 races we care about.
Really great now. But I'm going to be honest. Look, I really miss Cenk. Like, I miss him here. It's a win-win. It's a win-win for me personally.
It's not a selfish thing.
You were done with that whole thing of me and you doing the main show?
No, I love doing the show with you, John, but like you're too...
But not as much.
So yeah, John Iadarola and Anna Kasparian are having to pretend that they're going to be glad that Cenk Uygur is going to be back, doing the main show with them. They're not going to be glad. It's going to be, I guess it could be this case of misery loves company. The downfall of the progressive Justice Democrat candidates is going to be, I think, a big story, or I guess just a side story, because you're going to see in Michigan and in Minnesota, there's going to be efforts to unseat people who are already, they're already serving in Congress, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, simply because they are obstructions to the Democratic leadership. And yeah, those people could lose. You're seeing significant, and Ocasio-Cortez, by the way, I think her election primary is in June. I think the end of June. That's when it was in 2018. So yeah, those people are going to probably lose their jobs. Joe Biden is going to be a very difficult person for them to support, but they will support him. They will support. Mark my words, mark the words of all the other people who you might know me from appearing on their streams, like Lennon McCarthy, like Hard Bastard. They are going to endorse Joe Biden eventually. They're going to tell all of their woke followers, swallow this pill, bend over and take it again, and endorse, support Joe Biden again. They're going to tell them this, even though they said, "Oh, we're going to war." No, you're not going to war, because if the Democrats lose in 2020, and they basically are shut out of government, what is TYT now? TYT is basically one of the groups that's going to be blamed for this downfall, because people are going to say, "Oh, you made us look ridiculous. You made the Democrats look like some sort of unpalatable radical fringe group." That's going to be, and look, I think some of that is absolutely justified. I think TYT's been part of the media landscape, and they would deny it, but they're definitely part of the media complex, seeing as they do receive money from Google, seeing as they do have connections to people like Susan Wojcicki. They're going to be blamed for a lot of the defeats, and they're going to be a scapegoat, and they're not going to be able to recover from it, because people will say, well, they're not actually helping the cause, and they would be right. So they're going to have to be team players and endorse Joe Biden and abandon this idea that they're quote-unquote independent media, unlike Jimmy Dore, who, regardless of some of his political views, yes, he's remained as independent as he can get. And in fact, I think he did vote for Gabbard in California over Bernie Sanders. And I think that it takes tremendous integrity in order to do that. Apparently, Hassan Piker did leave TYT, and his series Agitprop was canceled, and therefore you're going to see a lot of these tankies exit TYT. This was, I guess, in January, so late report. If you have more information on it, I'd be very interested to know, because I think some of the information has been scrubbed from the internet, like his Twitch stream. TYT's union is also getting much more feisty and going after him. Now that the congressional race is over, it's not going to be a stunt. They're actually going to try to unionize. And if the Young Turks are dealing with some sort of union labor dispute while they're attempting to, while they're attempting to cover this election, it's going to be bad news for them. Excuse me. This is from In These Times, which is one of the more hardcore left-wing periodicals on the internet. And, you see them basically putting him through the ringer here. So, yeah, this whole notion that they support organized labor is a huge, huge cock tease, in my opinion. They don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to both the economics of labor participation, or why collective bargaining makes sense or doesn't make sense in a given business. I think maybe they know in their heart, Cenk Uygur knows, that it doesn't really pay for his business to have unionized employees. It actually hampers his business's ability to compete. But excuse me, he's still not capable of admitting to it. And before we try to conclude here, Kamala Harris has apparently endorsed Joe Biden.
I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. I believe in Joe. I really believe in him, and I have known him for a long time. One of the things that we need right now is we need a leader who really does care about the people and who can therefore unify the people. And I believe Joe can do that.
This is from a woman who previously had criticized him as some sort of segregationist, for opposing busing. Remember, she put him through the ringer back in June and tried to make it seem like Joe Biden was way behind on race, and now apparently all is forgiven. I think this might be a different video.
Hey everybody, so I'm here in Alabama. I arrived here to commemorate the 55th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. I'll be walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge again with John Lewis and so many great leaders and fighters. I'm just here thinking about all of the folks who for generations have fought and died for our civil rights and fought to help our nation achieve its ideals. And you guys know we still have yet to achieve those ideals, but one of the greatest things about us is we are willing to fight to get there. So I just wanted you guys to know, because you've been supporting me for so long, and I just wanted you guys to know I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. I believe in Joe.
So yeah, that's just a repeat of some of it, and it is very funny watching this because she was a huge critic of his. She was trying to steal a lot of his thunder last year. Now she's trying to grab onto his coattails, and instead of kicking her to the curb like maybe he should have, because honestly at this point, what does he need her for? She was rejected by the black electorate. She was rejected by most people. She was absolutely destroyed in that famous exchange with Tulsi Gabbard. What does he say instead? She is solid. She can be president someday herself. She can be the vice president. She can go on to be a Supreme Court justice. She can be an attorney general. She has enormous capacity. That's what Biden said. That, in my opinion, is a nightmare. I said several times during the race that of all the Democratic candidates, all of them, whether it's Sanders, whether it's Marianne Williamson, whether it was Elizabeth Warren, of all the Democratic candidates, the worst one, the one who would cause the most damage, the one who had the most potential to abuse power, was Kamala Harris. And that, in my opinion, is reason enough to vote against Joe Biden. Vote for whoever, even if you're not going to vote for Donald Trump, I think you should vote for someone who's not Joe Biden in the general election. Finally today, last thing, update, Venezuelan government has arrested 30 PDVSA workers. This is further sign that the oil conglomerate is falling apart and disintegrating. These are people, think about it this way. They've been in power since 1999, and they're still arresting people for supposedly sabotaging the oil industry over there that is staffed mostly by people that the Maduro government has put in, that the Chavez government put in. When are they going to take responsibility for the fact that they wrecked this pearl in the sand? I don't know. I think that it's still going to be a very long road to redemption and recovery and liberation for Venezuela. I don't know how it's going to happen. I hope it happens with very little bloodshed. But until this point, we've just seen more and more evidence that the country simply hasn't reached bottom yet. It still has a ways to go. That's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also find me on all of the platforms on this card: YouTube, BitChute, Binds.com, and Subscribestar, as well as Gab. And I will talk to you later. Have a great week.